Warning. This program may contain material of an explicit or graphic nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Broadcasting undead from the B Ward, this is the Post-Mortem Show. I'm Dom.
And I'm JD. And today, based on the barrage of tweets by Guillermo del Toro and suggested by listener Marc Bartlett, we're going to give you our top 5 John Carpenter movies.
This is a pretty definitive list.
It is. John Carpenter's made a shitload of good movies,
Yeah.
but the 5 that I selected from my top 5, I think are his 5 best, and I don't think any could be replaced with another.
Yeah, and he really only made 2 movies that I didn't like, which actually I was thinking it might be an interesting list of top 5 bad movies by good directors.
That is a great idea, yeah. That's a great idea. We should get to that. So, we got that as well as Act the Movies, Annihilation, and Psychopaths.
Yeah. And we're going to be bringing you guys another interview, this time with co-writer and director of Chicago Rot, a movie that JD and I are both quite fond of, Dorian Weinzimmer.
We got the John Carpenter top 5, but before we get to that, we got a little bit of horror news for you. Horror news. I'll start us off this week with the news that everybody's been talking about. Rob Zombie tweeted a picture from the set of the upcoming sequel to The Devil's Rejects entitled 3 from Hell. Interestingly, he hashtagged Sherry Moon, himself, and Bill Moseley, but not Sid Haig, aka Captain Spaulding. This leads fans to speculate to whether or not the iconic clown would be making a comeback in 3 from Hell. Zombie quickly put a stop to that rumor by confirming that Sid Haig will be returning and the Firefly clan will ride again.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm wondering if that movie is going to be a prequel or if they're somehow going to bring them back from the dead after Devil's Rejects.
Well, plot details have not been released, but based on the shootout Freebird ending of Devil's Rejects, the Fireflies are believed to be dead at the end of Devil's Rejects.
They got pretty fucked up.
But did they survive, or are they back from hell, as the title says?
Right.
Only time will tell. You know what would be really cool? If it was like some sort of like seance or bullshit like that brought them back from the dead, you know, by the other members of the Firefly family, you know, and brought them back like from the dead, you know, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know how they're going to do it though. If it's probably not going to be a prequel
Because they all look older.
They all look older. Sherry's been aging since the first, you know, House of a Thousand Corpses.
Yeah.
It's very apparent, you know. So, but yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to it. I think he should stick with that. Yeah. Stick with what works for him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
He kind of went off there on a tangent and made some shit for a while. So.
Well, you know, I still say that if he had made his Halloween movies not Halloween movies and just created his own killer of some kind, they would have been okay movies.
Yeah.
It was just not Halloween.
I think maybe if he was going to do that, maybe he should have made some more before and then went to that.
Yeah.
But the time was right. He had the financial backing studio behind him. You know, he just came off those 2 massive successes.
Yeah, the money was there.
Yeah, so I guess you got to pull the trigger if the money's there. But
true.
Yeah, if he could have got a little bit more under his belt before he went with it, maybe it would have been better. Yeah. Who knows?
So, speaking of amazing directors, Shout Factory has announced that they've purchased Roger Corman's New Horizons Pictures library, which includes around 270 films and action sci-fi TV series, including Rock and Roll High School, Battle Beyond the Stars, Piranha, Galaxy of Terror, Blood Fist, Black Scorpion, Eat My Dust, Humanoid from the Deep, Slumber Party Massacre, and Forbidden World. Their site notes that Shout Factory and Ace Film plan to tap the 270 films and TV titles in the New Horizon library for new content development, remakes, merchandising, licensing programs, digital media content, and syndication across streaming TV. Also, my personal note on this is that Shout Factory produces Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Okay.
Which means they have a massive library to pick from now.
Yeah.
Roger Corman made a lot of real bad movies.
That's true. That's cool. Is it still going? The new one?
Yeah, they just announced on Thanksgiving, I believe, that they got renewed for a new season. And I was not super stoked with the outcome of the return season that was on Netflix. You know, they missed a lot of marks and made a lot of mistakes, but also, like, the first season or two of Mystery Science Theater 3000 is barely watchable. It's so bad.
Yeah.
You know, they hadn't found their groove yet.
I'm not a huge fan of it. Like, I'll watch it occasionally if it was on or something, you know, but I'm not like a diehard like you have.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really like to watch bad movies, you know. Maybe the commentary would make it funnier and stuff, but I want to watch some good movies.
Yeah, I literally watch that shit every night to fall asleep.
Yeah.
That's my...
But yes, but also... You also do seek out movies to review occasionally, like the Ouija Experiment.
Yeah.
So you are a bad movie watcher.
I've got a doozy for next episode.
Oh, really?
Fucking doozy with a capital D.
Wow. Foreshadowing to next episode.
Yeah, so... Assuming these episodes get released in the order they're recorded.
Yeah, we are.
If not, then the previous episode I talked about a doozy.
No, it's gonna be professional this time. I promise. Dom.
Okay.
Dom's going under the knife, so we are recording 2 episodes today. So what he's referring to is one time I edited things out of order, and there were references to the episode that hadn't happened yet. But. The trailer for The Badman has just dropped, and Kickstarter is now live, ending April 13th. No, it isn't about Razor Ramon. The Badman is the new film from writer-director Scott Shermer, who gave us 2012's awesome movie, Found. Have you seen Found?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. It looks like it's about a woman who inherits a small hotel after the death of her mother. When a man shows up claiming to have reservations, she decides to rent him the room to be nice. Then weird things begin to happen as the man wears clown makeup, captures them, and wants to turn the man into his dog and the woman into a living doll.
Wow. Sounds like a fucking classic.
It looks brutal and gritty like Found, and I can't wait to check out The Badman. Check out the trailer. You would really like it.
Cool,
it looks like one of those kind of movies that you shouldn't be watching, the way it's filmed, you know? And the Kickstarter has already met its $10,000 goal, but it's still taking donations.
Nice.
So this is coming out for sure. Look out for The Badman.
Cool. So Robert Eggers, the guy who made The Witch, which I did not like, and what was the other movie that he made?
Egger. Your skin's hanging off.
Your skin's hanging off your bones.
Sugar and water.
Anyway, the guy who made The Witch, his remake of Nosferatu has been announced as put on indefinite hold while he focuses on making his next film, The Lighthouse, starring Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson. Eggers still wants to make the film, which he directed as a live stage play at age 17, and wants to cast Anya Taylor-Joy in the lead female role, but will probably not be able to start it until The Lighthouse has completed production.
Doug Jones?
It has to be.
Doug Jones?
It has to be.
Dukes Ferratu.
Yeah.
Dukes Ferratu, that's our rating system. Dukes Ferratus.
That if anyone else plays Orlok in that, it's not going to be right.
Yeah, John Malkovich is pretty good, but
yeah, but you know, if you're doing a silent film style, you know, like Doug Jones is just the guy for that. And,
yeah,
and if Robert Eggers does not cast him, I may not even watch it.
All right, I have some real life horror news for you involving President Donald Trump.
His whole presidency is horror news.
But I got a specific bout of horror news for you. He wants to develop another service branch of the military, the Space Force. We're one step closer towards Starship Troopers and avenging the massacre on Klendathu. Trump said that the idea started as a joke, but then he decided it was a great idea, tremendous idea.
Huge idea.
Yeah, and he said that space is a war-fighting domain, just like the land, air, and sea. President Donald Trump on Tuesday said his new national security strategy recognizes that space is a theater of war, and he floated the idea of creating a space force, a branch of the military that would operate outside of the Earth's atmosphere.
You know, we already have that. It's called the Air Force.
We may even have a space force. Develop another one. Space Force. We have the Air Force. We'll have the Space Force.
You know, I heard about this last week, and I saw a meme that pretty much sums up the way I feel about it, which is, how is it that we have a president who bangs porn stars and wants a space force, and I still hate him?
I know, it's very strange. So think of the Space Force. We're we're spending a lot of money. We have a lot of private money coming in. Tremendous. The tremendous. You saw what happened the other day, and tremendous success. From the very beginning, many of our astronauts have been soldiers and airmen, Coast Guards and Marines. Our service members may be vital to ensuring America continues to lead the way to the stars.
You know, the whole point of space exploration from the very beginning, and we're going to do an off-topic that I wrote up on Jack Parsons, who created jet-assisted takeoff and the rocket fuel that we still use to get into space. And from the moment that scientists were saying we should get into space, the whole thing has been missions of peace. You know, getting off the planet, peacefully colonizing other planets, you know, spreading humanity out in as peaceful a way possible, and maybe if we can spread humanity out into space, there would be, you know, less immediate space on Earth to fight over, so people would want to fight fewer wars. Leave it to a fucking cocksucker like Donald Trump to take this whole fucking utopian space idea and be like, it's a theater of war.
So, Mike Rogers, the biggest backer in Congress of the military space branch, said, "This is just the first step. We will not allow the United States national security space enterprise to continue to drift towards a space Pearl Harbor. We need to protect our space."
Jesus fuck.
So what happens when the Martians come? And you don't have a space force. You're fucked.
We die, and it's probably for the best at this point.
When those bugs start launching their blue space turds our way,
yeah,
what's going to happen when Buenos Aires burns to the ground?
You know what, though? If we could somehow just use this as a ploy to launch Donald Trump into space, I'm cool with it.
I'll be the general.
Yeah.
I can't do a good Trump. You see, I kind of started trying to do it, then I kind of gave up, and then I just started
But that's
trying
how
to
he talks, too.
I can't do it.
I thought it was pretty accurate. So I've got some real-world horror news, too. Konstantin Reliu learned in January that he was dead. After more than 20 years of working as a cook in Turkey, the 63-year-old returned home to Romania to discover that his wife had him officially registered as dead. He has since been living a legal nightmare of trying to prove to authorities that he is in fact alive. He faced a major setback this Thursday when a court in the northeastern city of Vaslui refused to overturn his death certificate because his request was filed too late. The decision on the court was final. "I'm a living ghost," Reliu told the Associated Press. "I'm officially dead, though I'm alive. I have no income, and because I'm listed as dead, I can't get a job or do anything." Reliu explained that he first went to work in Turkey in 1992 and returned in 1995 to the big shock of his marriage, his wife's infidelity. In 1999, he decided to return to Turkey for good. Last December, Turkish authorities detained him over expired papers, and in January deported him to Romania. Upon landing in Bucharest airport, he was informed by border officials that he was dead. He underwent 6 hours of questioning and tests. He spent weeks trying to persuade them to issue him papers that he officially existed. When that failed, he asked them to overturn the ruling on his death certificate issued in 2016, which also ended in failure. Reliu said he would like to file a fresh lawsuit, but has no money and suffers from diabetes, which makes everything difficult. He also said that he has been banned for life from returning to Turkey, but would like to return to the Turkish president to appeal the decision. So this poor fucker goes to work, earn some money for his family, comes back, finds his wife cheating on him. It's like, fuck it, I'm out. Leaves, and while he's gone, his wife's like, oh yeah, he's dead.
You know, listeners, what you can do is you can pause this. You can, after I finish telling you what I'm about to say, rewind back to the beginning of Dom's story and listening to it with this image in your head. That guy trying to prove he's not dead is the guy from Baskin with the key in his head. Is it his turkey?
Hey, I'm dead.
The guy from Baskin.
Yeah.
I would like that. I would like to see that documentary made.
Yeah.
The man from Baskin trying to prove his own.
I mean, you're there. You're passing all the tests. You've got your own fucking fingerprints, and they're like, no, you're dead. Sorry, it's too late for you to appeal this.
Well,
poor guy.
Anytime he has sex, it's going to be necrophilia.
It's true. Do you think it's necrophilia if he jerks off, then?
I don't know.
Yeah. So that's the question of the ages.
That's kind of those existential things we wonder about, you know, sometimes in this life. Who are we?
Yeah.
When we're dead, if we jerk off, is it necrophilia? These are the kind of questions that only Biff knows the answer to.
Yeah. And he's not talking.
And he's not, and his lips are sealed. So that's it for horror news. We will be back with At the Movies after this. Already up this month on our Patreon, we have Creepypastas.
Hey, it's a creepypasta. That's a spicy horror meatball.
My story, Judgment. Delivery by Dom. And my old story, Hunting Season.
We have Postmortem Off Topic. Off Topic! Featuring stories about Gigi Allen, the Illuminati, and Count Cagliostro.
As well as the Best of JD Horror Deathmatch DVD video download.
There will be more.
Music from Mechanical Ghost, Grave Command, Public Defecation, Weapon A, and Old Scratch and the Necrophonic Orchestra.
And my new documentary series, Strogs Docs.
Strogs Dogs.
Episode 1, The Selfie Killer.
And coming soon, a new creepypasta written by me called It Came From Fox News, more off topics, and Strogs Docs 2.
Strogs Docs 2, and I got a good one coming up.
What up, Strogs?
That's on patreon.com/postmortemshow.
Let's go down to the movies with Dom and JD, Blood, Boobies, and Dojo!
Psychos, monsters, bloody slashes, maniacs, and tits and asses, chainsaws, knives, and facial bashes on Postmortem.
Let's go down to the movies with Dom and JD for some more Doug Jones.
No, Doug Jones.
Annihilation, annihilation, annihilation. Destruction, self-destruction, self-destruction.
It's a good cover there.
Yeah. Crucifix.
Yeah.
Except for it's like a more of a high-pitched, like, Asian guy that does the voice. I don't know why I'm saying it like that.
Which is not you.
Yeah. Annihilation by Crucifix. So, Annihilation came out to not so much fanfare.
No.
2018 Netflix original directed by Alex Garland, based on the novel by Jeff Vandermeer, starring Natalie Portman and Jennifer Jason Leigh. A biologist's husband disappears. She puts her name forward for an expedition into an environmental disaster zone, but does not find what she's expecting. The expedition team is made up of a biologist, an anthropologist, a psychologist, a surveyor, and a linguist. What do you think about this movie?
I wanted to like this movie more than I did.
Me too.
Which is not to say that I didn't like it. I was a big fan of Ex Machina, so I kind of went into it with some expectations.
Is it the same director?
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved Ex Machina.
Yeah. This movie had some flaws.
Yeah.
But it had some good stuff, too.
It did. And Natalie Portman is a professor whose husband has been missing for over a year. She can't get over it. And then we get a Crosby, Stills, and Nash painting and sad memories montage.
Yeah.
Got some Crosby, Stills, and Nash going on there.
Out of nowhere.
Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Biff. The husband shows up back but can't remember what happened. He says he doesn't feel good and has a seizure. On the way to the hospital, the ambulance is pulled over by Army SWAT guys who take them into custody. There's been some sort of interdimensional rift or something that nothing comes back from except for Natalie Portman's husband. So her and 4 other scientists go into this phenomena they call the shimmer to study it and find out what's happening. Not much else can be said without it being a giveaway.
Yeah.
In this movie. It's a little different than I thought. Like, based on the poster, I thought it was going to be more like gun shooting and that kind of like action.
And there was some of that. But
it's sci-fi horror, though. Like
yeah.
this, I didn't think that this would deserve to be talked about on this show.
Yeah,
when I heard about this movie, till I saw it, and I was like, oh, well, I guess that's something that's horror elements, sci-fi horror.
It was cerebral horror, and it was like existential horror about like it had a lot of elements of The Thing. With the paranoia and the not knowing who you can and can't trust.
Yeah, I think it's a combination to me of Arrival. Have you seen Arrival?
Yeah.
The Thing and The Girl with All the Gifts. Have you seen that yet?
I haven't seen that one
Really
yet.
good movie.
With like a Predator element to it.
Yeah. All 3 of those movies, though, are better than this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jennifer Jason Leigh is awesome in her role as the military scientist. I loved her in The Hateful Eight, and I got a lot of mileage out of my Fast Times VHS, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A lot of mileage of that short scene.
Yeah.
That's all I needed, though.
Yeah. It looks a lot different now, though.
Yeah.
I
still go there, though.
Yeah.
I would. She used to be smoking hot back in the day, so. Some good gore in this, like with the intestine scene, and there's a jaw scene, that was pretty sweet.
Yeah.
But Horrible CGI with immersion fire. No CGI fire, please. No more CGI fire. The CGI really showed the lack of the budget. Some of it is almost laughable, like early 2000 CGI.
Yeah, absolutely. It looked like something it looked like fucking 90s morphing effects.
Yeah.
And, you know, the thing about this is, I looked, just out of raw curiosity. This movie did not need to look cut rate like it did. They could have pulled off otherworldly weirdness, like The Dark Crystal or Labyrinth or The Neverending Story did, practically. I looked, and this movie had a bigger budget than all three of those movies. And in modern times, there's more expertise in how to do that, so it should be cheaper to do it. But instead, they had to fucking cartoon shit up, and it really...
Cartoon alligators and bears and shit that look horrible.
Terrible.
I mean, we're talking like... Starship Troopers is far superior to this.
Yeah.
By leaps and bounds. And what was that, 99?
Yeah, I think the only thing really worse than this that was a big budget movie was The Scorpion King in terms of CG.
Yeah,
you know,
that looks just laughable.
The bear, there was the concept behind the bear and what was going on with it could have been fucking scary.
The bear in that Leonardo DiCaprio movie was awesome.
Yeah.
That worked, even though it was a cartoon.
Absolutely.
You know, this did not.
Yeah, they just didn't do it right. Or they could have just not shown it, you know, or shown bits and pieces of it.
Yeah.
You know, when you got the close-up of the bear's face, I believe that the close-up on the bear's face was an animatronic or a puppet of some kind. If they had just kept it to shadows and people getting dragged out and the weird sounds it was making, and then maybe just quick glimpses of the face, it would have been fine.
Yeah. It was a good concept, although very derivative, and I was liking it until about halfway through. The CGI just lost me, and the plot gets a little disjointed and kind of throws logic out of the window.
Yeah.
Everyone they sent into the Shimmer had died and never made it back, except for one guy who's dying and coughing up blood. They keep him in a quarantine area and wear hazmat suits around him, but then they just go into the Shimmer completely unprotected with no hazmat suits, nothing whatsoever. The science of anything in this movie is never explained, and I had the feeling that none of the characters knew what they were talking about.
Right.
When it came to it does not translate well, like the scientists and stuff like that.
It sounded like, you know, 50s sci-fi psycho, you know, science battle.
Yeah. Also one of the worst and stupidest endings I've seen in a long time. It's bookended by Natalie Portman telling the story of what happened so you know she survives. I hate that.
Yeah.
You know, especially if there's like a twist after that. I don't think there was a twist after it. But...
And they tell you right in the very beginning that everyone else is going to die. So there's not even any surprise.
Yeah, and it's just not... it just, for everything it did right, it did something else wrong.
Absolutely.
IMDb gives us a 7.3. I don't know why. I don't know how it's 7.3.
Yeah.
But like I said, for everything it did right, it did something wrong. So... when I do my ratings, I usually start out at an even 5. And I start adding or taking away, you know. And for everything that did right, it did wrong, so I just give it a 5.
Okay. So I agree that everything...
Dukes
Ferratus. Everything that it did right, every time it did something right, it did something wrong. But there were some subtleties in this that I noticed. Like, if you pay attention when you're watching it, audience members, there's an Ouroboros tattoo that gets transferred between people. And they never say anything about it. You're just like I noticed it on Natalie Portman, and I was like, wait. And I rewound it a little bit, and it was on another character.
Yeah.
You know, the little subtle things like that I liked. And that's where this movie had something really going for it.
The concept is what it had going for it. It's just the execution with the CGI and shit.
Yeah.
And some of the plot holes and the science is not good.
And I'm guessing that the book is a lot better.
I bet so. Yeah, I bet the book is... far and superior.
Yeah. So I'm going to give this 6 out of 10 Dukes Ferratus because I was at least entertained when I was watching it. And there was enough little subtle things happening in there to keep my attention. And you know, some neat ideas going on. It was just kind of not very well executed.
All right. 6 out of 10. So that's it for Annihilation. So our next movie we had at Dom and JD at the movies this week, suggested to me by my buddy Jason, who comes on the show every October to tell us about extreme haunted houses. Has a lot in common as far as like our likes of the movies we like, you know, extreme French horror, reality-based brutality kind of stuff. 2017, written and directed by Mickey Keaton, Psychopaths. The IMDb plot synopsis is only this. Several psychopaths wreak havoc over the course of a violent night. That's all it says.
Mm-hmm.
So... opens up with a black and white TV montage of Larry Fessenden as Henry Starkweather and his execution. He's like a combination of Henry Lee Lucas and Charles Starkweather with some Manson thrown in there. A little bit of, different serial killers.
Yeah.
Some good cinematography with burning car scene. Opening credits are like an exploitation throwback. But what I really like about this movie is the cinematography. It's very, very good. 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 Okay, so tell me some of the things you think about this movie before I get into breaking it down.
This movie felt like a whole lot of nothing. I kept waiting for it to tell a cohesive story, and it never did, and it didn't even play by its own rules.
Yep. After Henry Starkweather's execution, people start killing each other all over the city, extremely violent ways, almost similar to The Purge, but with laws. Then we meet our mustachioed, strangling, hair clip saving killer. That's my favorite character in the whole movie.
Yeah, he was sleazy.
The story doesn't really follow a certain character. It just sort of moves through the city, and there's no thorough line other than Starkweather's curse is driving people to kill.
Right.
Some segments, like the mustache guy, got me, while others, like singing and dancing, were just a little too slow.
Yeah.
The stranger's masks were a little cliche, too. There's a lot of... I don't know. I just really do not like this movie. I did not like it at all.
Yeah.
It's hyper stylized with lights and music and the way it's edited. There were some good kills, but I really liked Mickey Keaton's other movie, Pod. Have you seen Pod?
Yeah, Pod was
with
good.
Alien?
Pod
I
was
really
very
loved
good.
that. But I didn't like Carnage Park.
I didn't see that one.
And there's a movie called Darling he made that I watched a little bit of. It's black and white, something more artsy like this one is, kind of the way it's filmed. And I didn't really get through that. I watched a little bit of it, and I haven't been able to turn it back on and watch it. But he shows some promise. I just don't like. I didn't like this movie.
Yeah. So I thought the cinematography was good. I thought every single actor was good, even if I didn't really like the characters. The actors played them well. And I liked that the violence in the movie seemed like it was brutal, even though it really didn't show all that much.
Yeah.
But, as I said, it never went anywhere. It was just a combination of, like, random vignettes that didn't stick to its own framework. Like, they tried to imply that the execution of Starkweather was the catalyst for all of this violence, but it totally wasn't. It was clear that all 4 of the killers in this movie were already established active murderers with a history of violence before Starkweather even got killed. You know, and they talked about, oh, it's the night of chaos, it's the night of chaos, but they didn't really show that much chaos.
Yeah.
You know, it was just sort of following around these 3 killers, 4 killers if you count one of the interactions that happens. And I kept waiting for it to start something, and it never did. You know, it seemed to me that the director here had some cool ideas for characters in a world, but no idea what to do with them. And
how to make them interact and stuff. Yeah.
And it sort of just made the movie a tiresome mishmash of coincidences and violence.
Yeah, I found myself looking at the time several times. So,
and it wasn't even... It was only an hour and 20 minutes long.
Yeah.
You know, it's... I think this probably would have been better if he had just done, like, 3 short films.
Yeah.
Or
maybe I just don't get it. I felt almost when I was watching it, like, I don't get this. I can see there's something there, but I don't get it. Maybe he can explain it.
Yeah.
You know, why he liked it. You know,
I felt like he was more trying to make you feel like I don't get it. It was a fucking Nicholas Winding Refn movie. It was like Nicholas Winding Refn with a lower budget.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I think that this guy is a good director. He is a good filmmaker in terms of technical filmmaking, and he had a very competent cast, but he is not a writer. And
Pod had a very strong script.
Yeah,
and he wrote and directed Pod.
He wrote Pod also.
Yeah.
Maybe he blew his load on that.
Well, he's like almost like auteur kind of writing directing guy. All of his movies he's done like 5 or 6 now. And he's wrote and directed all of them.
Okay.
So, I mean, Pod was so good. I think I gave it like an 8.5 or something. You know, when we did our ratings on it. And I think or maybe I just reviewed it. I don't remember, but you saw it as well, right?
Yeah,
and you would agree with that. Like
absolutely.
higher 8.5, something like that would be good for it. But this just IMDb doesn't get this movie either. The consensus on it was 3.7.
Okay,
which I think is probably too low.
Yeah,
3.7. I'm kind of tying it with Annihilation this week at a 5. Dukes Ferratus.
I gave it a 5 also.
Wow, so we're kind of both in line with both of these movies.
Yeah,
don't really care for them. I don't know.
Psychopaths would be a good movie to have on in the background at a party. You don't have to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
You know, it's got some good images, it's got some good stuff going on, but it just not enough. It's all sizzle and no steak.
I think that if I had to watch one or the other again, I would watch Annihilation. It's an hour and 50 minutes, and Psychopaths is an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, I would definitely watch Annihilation again. Because in Annihilation, I'm pretty sure I missed something.
Yeah.
In Psychopaths, they just wanted you to feel like you missed something, and you really didn't.
All right, so not too good of an at the movies this week.
Yep.
This is my selections this week. I apologize, Dom.
It's all right.
You can select the movies next time. So, all right, we will be back. Got Dorian coming on the show to shoot the shit about Chicago Rot with us after this. You've heard about our Patreon. Something you can do for $0.
0 dimes.
Something we want you to be a part of is our Facebook group, Postmortem Show Horror Movie Podcast.
That's right. You can get on Facebook, look that up, and interact directly with JD and myself. Tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, share your stupid memes, get shit talked by me, just don't post racist shit.
Other than different pictures of H.P. Lovecraft.
That's the kind of racist shit that's okay to post. Look up the Facebook group, Postmortem Show Horror Movie Podcast. Join us online.
One of us. One of us.
Ladies and gentlemen, joining us now on the show is the co-writer and director of Chicago Rot, a film JD and I are both very fond of. Please welcome Mr. Dorian Weinzimmer.
Hey everybody, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate the fact that you pronounced my last name right as well. That was fantastic.
Let's go in the extra mile, right?
That's right.
It was rare, let me tell you.
Complete fucking luck. Complete luck.
So, we both really like Chicago Rot, and we're going to get to talking about the movie. But before we get to that, we kind of want to talk a little bit to you about you as a person. So, as far as movies, when do you first remember seeing a horror movie? And can you remember the exact horror movie you saw for the first time when you were a kid?
Oh man, the first one I saw, I grew up on horror, so it's been a part of my life for a very long time, and I credit a lot of my successes in life to that, actually. But God, the first one I ever saw, it's a tough call. My dad was a big cinephile, so he didn't really care about ratings. He was like, if it's a good movie, I'm going to take the kids to go see it. So we saw all sorts of crazy stuff when we were young. But definitely the one that made the biggest impression on me when I was younger was Evil Dead 2.
Nice.
I don't recall what age I was when I first saw that. I think I was probably 8 or 9 or something. It absolutely blew me away. It was just so creative and funny and terrifying at the same time. It was the first time I really saw a horror movie that kind of did both of those things, played both sides of the coin. It would make you laugh and then disarm you and then scare the shit out of you. And really, I also, that movie, my whole sort of, development of understanding what movies were, what cinema was, is mirrored in that film throughout my life. It was just this really funny, crazy movie when I was younger, and then as I got older and started developing, I guess, more of an understanding of what made a movie good or bad, the actual mechanics of it, I started to realize, what Sam Raimi did in that film to make it, function that way. And I started to learn, what a director's job was. And, so that Evil Dead 2, hands down, I'm going to say is the answer to that question. Whether or not it was the first horror movie I saw, that's my answer.
Both of our top 5 of all time, I think.
Absolutely.
Love us some Evil Dead 2. Combination of horror and comedy, always good. So, another question before we get into Chicago Rot: when did you first want to make movies? What made you want to make movies yourself, and when did you know that this is something you wanted to do?
It was when I was 25 years old. It was very, very specific. I was having a sort of difficult time at that point, kind of figuring out exactly what I wanted to do. I was always a math and science kid growing up. Had a natural aptitude for both of those, and just kind of went down that path because it was like, oh, you're good at this, do that more. So when I first graduated high school and got into college and everything, I was studying electrical engineering actually, and realized pretty quickly that okay, I'm good at this, but I fucking hate it. I derived no pleasure really from doing this, and at the same time I was starting to feel this creative urge. I was taking creative writing classes and playing music and all this type of stuff, and kind of floundered around for a few years trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to do. A couple of my really good friends are great musicians, and I thought that was maybe the path, and realized from hanging out with great musicians that it wasn't, because I saw the disparity between my abilities and theirs. And actually this film school in Chicago called Flashpoint, now Tribeca Flashpoint College is the name of it now, was just opening their doors when I was about 25 years old. And my mom, for some reason was still getting mail from the college and career resource center at my high school, even though I was 7 years past graduation at that point. She got a mailer from this film school starting up. She knew what I was going through and called me up one day and was like, "Hey, have you ever thought about going to film school?" And it was just this blinding flash of the obvious. I love music, I love writing, I love films. This is all of that combined, and said yes, and have not looked back since.
Wow. It's really cool that you had your parents' support going into it to the point that they supported you before you even knew you wanted to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I am so grateful to both my parents. Were incredibly supportive of the entire thing, and throughout the whole. Even nowadays, my mom is still the biggest cheerleader for this film.
Nice.
Which is always really funny when we show it. People are like, "Wait, that's your mom? Did she see the dildo scene?" I was like, "Yeah, she's the one who told me don't cut it down."
It's a good mom.
That's a great mom.
Yeah. No, she's awesome. So it's been great having their support, through the years.
We're kind of like-minded. Both Dom and myself also make music in addition to, doing this, in addition to writing stories, in addition to I dabbled in professional wrestling for a while, and just different creative outlets, needing multiple creative outlets until you find the one that's right for you. So,
absolutely.
Always you need that
cool
itch. Yeah, that itch you need to scratch where you need to create something from nothing.
Yes, absolutely. No, it is the most frustrating and greatest feeling in the world.
Well, I've got to say, just right off the bat, you knocked it out of the park with Chicago Rot. JD saw the movie.
Thank you guys so much.
JD saw the movie before I did, and he was like, "Dom, you're going to love this movie," and I absolutely did. And I feel like it was a very unique vision that you brought to the screen, and it almost felt like I was watching a comic book. And this movie is more of a comic book movie than any comic book movie I've ever seen. Was that something you did intentionally?
That's a huge compliment. Thank you guys. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed the film. First and foremost, and of course, thank you so much for having me on. Definitely. Brant McRae, who is the lead actor in the film, him and I co-wrote the movie. It's total independent film, so we all have 7 titles on it. But we co-wrote the movie. Brant actually wrote the original draft of it. And, it was 50 pages of just blood, tits, and mayhem. And, so we, took 9 more drafts to kind of refine it to what it became. But it's funny because we actually, as we were developing it, we had started to think about potentially doing a comic book, sort of prequel to it, to sort of bring people into the world, sort of establish some of these things. And that didn't really pan out, but some of the concepts and ideas we were playing with from a visual and narrative standpoint for this prequel comic did end up making their way into the film as we were, actually got into production and started making it, and of course in the edit as well. So yes, it was, as I'm sure you can tell, there was a myriad of influences functioning as we were making this movie, but definitely a comic book style, approach was something that we were looking for.
Yeah, definitely. You can definitely tell it's a myriad of different things. And when I described it to Dom, I said, Adam Chaplin meets Spawn meets Natural Born Killers meets... Have you ever seen the movie Faust, Love of the Damned? It's an early 2000s, maybe late 90s, ultra gory, based on a graphic novel as well.
No, I have not.
You should check that out. You'd really like it. Just based on the movie that you've made, you would really enjoy that.
It's a Brian Yuzna production, so that says a lot about it.
Okay. Excellent. Well, no, I'm going to write that down because I'm always looking for good movie recommendations. So,
I also really liked your use of music in this. It's always been one of my personal goals to score a horror film or some sort of extreme, strange movie. When you put this movie together, did you have the music ideas in your head in advance, or did that come as the movie was in production?
It's funny you ask. So in keeping with some of the sort of philosophies and approach that we had to the film, we, not only in, the title of the movie, Chicago Rot, this was very much through and through a Chicago production. We wanted to use, Chicago crew, Chicago artists, everything, local people. There's this amazing just talent pool in Chicago of actors, writers, musicians, artists of every discipline that, is just sort of like sadly overlooked because we're not New York or LA. And, this was our opportunity. We saw it we got out of film school and saw all of our friends move to the coasts, and we were like, no, we want to stay here and make films. So that really provided the impetus for us to want to, make it not just a film in Chicago, but really about Chicago and kind of celebrating the city as well, because we just absolutely love it here and want to continue making movies here. So along with that, we had actually gotten the rights to a lot of music from a bunch of Chicago bands. Brandt has worked at this rock club here in Chicago called the Metro for about 20 years. Sorry, Brandt, if I've just aged you, but he knows like everybody in the music scene here in Chicago. So we actually had gotten the rights to like a Smashing Pumpkins song, a Big Black song, which is Steve Albini's band.
One of my favorite bands.
Oh, excellent. Pelican, Naked Ray Gun, Local H, who appears in the film, and, so we shot that had to stay.
I love Naked Ray Gun.
Oh, yeah, no, Brandt is he's the one who turned me on to them. I didn't really know about them, and he
old school
really,
punk rock, yeah.
turned me into a fan fast.
Definitely, yeah. So,
yeah.
So
we had, while we were in production for the film, we had, started accruing the rights to some of this music. And so when we got done with the, production and we're in the edit, and I got sort of the first assembly of the picture completed, myself and the cinematographer, Ryan Barina, we edited the picture, just a quick mention, but we got this first assembly cut done, and I handed it off to Brandt because he's a musician himself, and he was going to be placing the music, sort of functioning as the music supervisor role for the movie. And, we had always sort of intended for him to write maybe some little incidental bits that to fill in some of the gaps where we didn't have a licensed piece of music to fit in there. And so, gave it to him. He spent some time with it. And then one day, he called me up. He was like, all right, it's ready to watch. I went over to his place. We sat down and watched it. Finished. He looked at me. He was like, what do you think? And I looked at him. I said, it's awful. And he kind of sunk his head down for a second. He was like, I know. And, so began the conversation about okay, what happened here? And, really it was just a lot of the, we had gotten the music basically what we could get. It wasn't specifically written in, as I know Tarantino does with his scripts, because, he'll be able to get those pieces of music. We sort of, we're like, okay, we have these scenes. What songs will these bands be willing to give us? And then, we tried to sort of put that together, in post-production. And when we did that, we realized that it was really just sort of these really cool pieces of music and these really cool scenes that had nothing to do with each other.
Okay.
And, and pacing issues. And then it was like, okay, well, if we start recutting the scenes with this music, we're just going to make a series of music videos, it's not really a film. However, the music that Brandt had written to fill in some of the gaps was fucking spot on, just absolutely perfect for the movie. Him, having co-written the script, played the lead role in the film. He was very, very obviously in touch with
the
narrative. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he is Les, the ghoul. So he was very in touch with, the narrative, the subtext, everything. And being a musician, he was able to translate all of that into, musical language. And, so he and I just looked at him and was like, well, the stuff you wrote is great. Would you, be willing to score the film?
I like the score a lot.
Yeah,
the score is really good. The actual score of it.
He knocked it out of the fucking park. Blew it out of the water.
Yeah.
So, that's how that came about. And a quick shout out, too. We actually will be releasing the soundtrack probably next month. So
I will be looking for that.
Look out for that.
Yeah, definitely. And so, a while back, we did our top 5. Every show we do a top 5. And a while back, we did our top 5 what the fuck did I just watch movies. And had I seen Chicago Rock before we made this list, it would have made my top 5, because there is so much here, between the vigilante for justice plot, you have the otherworldly kind of plot going on with the crime drama. There's so much here and it really comes across as like a work of passion, and like you said, like a blending of different styles and different elements.
Yes, we affectionately refer to it as a rock and roll revenge thriller horror surreal sci-fi clusterfuck of a movie. And I think that's the best way we could possibly sum it up. We've spent about 7 years, talking about it, because that's really how long it's taken us from script to screen, so to speak. So we've had plenty of time to sort of revise how we, pitch the movie or try to explain it to people, and that's really been the one that people respond to, because they hear that and they go, "Oh, okay, that sounds interesting." And then they watch it and they go, "Wow, actually, that's exactly what it is."
Yeah, I described it to Dom. We did the reviews and stuff, and I was talking to him about it, and I described it to him as quite possibly the weirdest movie I'd ever seen. And I love weird movies. I seek them out, but this is one. This kind of lives in its own world. Can't really compare it to anything else, and that's something that you really should, be very proud of.
Oh, well, thank you so much. And yeah, no, we very, very much were, intending to do something very unique. And yeah, we wanted to carve our own sort of identity out of, the noise of how many people are making films nowadays, especially in the horror genre, which is, very easy to get into from the low budget standpoint, of course. Some people do, amazing stuff with it at that level. And we were like, okay, well, there's a lot of people doing the sort of traditional kind of horror movies, but let's just, let's take our ambition all the way and not say no to ourselves in the script level, or, until some insurmountable obstacle comes up that actually says, no, you cannot do this. Our answer is, yes, we can.
Yeah.
So we took that approach with everything, and, we also just really have the mentality that there's, what you don't have money to spend on, you can overcome with creativity.
Yeah.
And whether that just be the way that we stylize certain scenes, approach them. I'm a big sort of film nut in every genre. I mean, I'm just as likely to be watching like a Czechoslovakian movie from the 1953 as I am to be watching, Evil Dead 2 or whatever. So, a lot of the approaches from watching these other types of genres, other types of, filmmakers, auteur filmmakers, and their just really unique approaches to cinema, really inspired many, many elements to this film, and things that we were like, shit, we don't have $1 million to spend on this scene. It was like, well, okay, well, what's a creative way we can approach it where we can create that effect, that same effect we want from this scene, but do it, within our budget. And,
well, this does not seem like a low-budget movie. It does not seem like a low-budget movie. The way you've done it, it doesn't seem like that. There's a lot of practical effects in this movie.
Yeah, oh yeah. We're very, very adamant about that. We're big practical effects nuts. I will say as very much as a point of pride, there is not a drop of CGI blood in this movie.
Nice.
Yeah.
And it shows.
That was something we knew we needed to do from the outset.
It makes all the difference in the world.
You guys noticed were CGI, some of the more out there otherworldly elements that there weren't other options for us. But the blood, the gore effects, and everything, those are 100% practical.
Well, it's not necessarily like, it doesn't seem like CGI with the otherworldly effects and stuff. The movie, honestly, have you ever played the game Half-Life?
Oh yeah, I'm a big video game fanatic.
Okay,
well. Yes.
So Half-Life, when I was watching Chicago Rot, it kind of seemed like how the game Half-Life, to where you go to like that otherly dimension after the shit hits the fan and everything, and you're in this other weird world that's almost like the laws do not apply here. Everything is completely different. But the way that world was, it kind of reminded me of that. It kind of had that vibe.
I will take comparison to Zen any day of the week. That is wonderful.
I very much put this movie in the same category as Six String Samurai, which is another one of my favorite movies.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's a great one.
Yeah, in the sense that it really is just a perfect blending of all of these elements. When you started making the movie, how long from first shot to final cut did it take for you to have a product that you were happy with, that really conveyed all of the madness you were trying to convey?
Sure, yeah, no. Our very first day of production is very easy to remember because it was November 1st, 2011, so it was 11/1/11. That was the first day we rolled cameras on the film, and we premiered the final cut of the movie in October of 2015. So about 4 years from when we actually started shooting to when we had a finished product, and there was about a year and a half of like script writing and pre-production prior to that, and then with festivals and distribution and all that, we're, as I mentioned before, we're in about 7 years total from when we really started this project to today.
Did you have any point in production where you suddenly felt like, what the fuck am I doing? Is anyone going to watch this?
Yeah, the first day. The first day was kind of a disaster, as it often goes. It really is just the first day of production kind of, shakiness. Also, this is my first feature film. I had directed some short films in school, some music videos, things like that. Done some freelance corporate gigs and things like that. But this is my first time really helming a feature. And, the first day of production, it was a bit overwhelming when you realize, like, holy shit, I'm in charge of this.
Yeah.
If this thing sucks, it's on me. So, our first day of filming was not the opening scene, the flashback, but when Les is let out of prison and Dave, the detective, shows up to fail at exacting his revenge on Les. But when we were shooting, that is the prison that we shot outside of is the Joliet Correctional Institute in Joliet, Illinois, which is where the opening scene of Blues Brothers was shot.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. We tried to use the exact same gate that he gets let out of, but that one's been decommissioned for so long, and there's a major road there now, so...
I never caught that. I'm a huge Blues Brothers mark. I love the Blues Brothers.
Oh, yeah, no, we knew. It was like without question, as soon like we both were like, we're shooting this at Joliet, right? So yeah, that's a foregone conclusion. But so we were shooting, in that parking lot area on the other side, and actually some people from the Illinois Department of Corrections showed up and shut us down. So yeah, we had permission from like the Joliet mayor's office and like everyone we could get in touch with, but then the IDOC showed up and told us like, oh, you guys can't film here, you don't have permission from us. So we ended up finding out later that actually they don't control the parking lot. They only control, if we had been like climbing the walls of the prison, then they could have kicked us out. But the parking lot is actually owned by the city of Joliet, who we had permission from. So that's why we were able to, I can talk about this without fear of them sending us a cease and desist or anything, because we actually did have the right permission.
So bottom line, fuck you, Joliet.
Yeah, seriously. We refer to it lovingly as the Joylet. But yeah, it's it forced us to get creative once again. Like we ended up having to shoot some things actually like across the street with like the building sort of like through the windshield of Dave's car to make it look like he was still parked right outside of there. And in some ways I'm grateful for the experience, because it really did teach us what it's really like to make a film. You got to constantly be thinking on your feet. And, knowing how to change things up as the situation calls for it without compromising what you want, and actually finding opportunities to even improve on what you were trying to do. So, yeah, it was a little harrowing, though, of course, kind of like getting kicked out, feeling that we didn't get all the shots we wanted, all that type of stuff. But, we ended up, once we looked at the footage when we got back to the hotel that we were staying at for the couple evenings we were shooting there, we, realized that, like, okay, now this scene is actually going to work. We got everything we really need. So that sort of set things, straight. But I definitely had the moment, sort of like the moment in True Romance when Kristen Slater's talking to Elvis in the mirror. I kind of had that moment, like, the morning of our second day of production, where it was like, all right, man, it's like sink or swim. Like, either you're totally committed to fucking doing this, or just, like, give up now. And, steeled my resolve, went out there, and we just kicked ass for the next, however many months we were in production.
Awesome. One thing that I noticed through this movie is that Les's look changes about 5 times through the film.
Yeah.
Was that something intentional, or was that something that just happened over production?
Yeah, it was definitely intentional. The shaving scene, of course, was very much intentional as far as like, okay, he's got to, he's just got out of prison, he's just murdered people, he's got to change up his look to be a little less, obviously conspicuous. But it was funny. Some of the costumes in there, I like halfway through production, I was laughing with Brant one day because I was like, "You just wanted to play dress up, didn't you?" he kept, like, we had talked about, you know, the costumes and had drawings and all this stuff and, you know, the sort of production sketches. And, you know, and then he'd show up to set in this, like, totally different outfit than what we had talked about. And, you know, it was always awesome. Like, he's a super creative guy, and the other people we were working with in the, you know, costume side of things and makeup are all insanely talented people who, if they had just told me, like, I'm not even going to tell you, I'm just going to show up and it's going to be great, I would have said, I trust you. But, you know, it was funny, we had talked through some of this stuff, and, yeah, then he'd just show up to set one, you know, on these days and be like, oh, okay. You're Kratos less now.
So he really is less, though. It sounds like it just channeled something from himself.
So Dorian, where can our listeners, if some of our listeners haven't seen the movie yet, where can they find it? What's the best way for them to find it?
Oh, sure. Definitely, it seems, you know, Amazon and iTunes are probably the most accessible places.
Is it still on Prime?
I don't believe so. Our distributor, Midnight Releasing, they had us on Prime for like a month or two when we first got released last April. And we got taken off of Prime, and they've been looking into ways to, like, loophole us back in, because I think there's some weird rules with how it works. If you've been on Prime and then you're off Prime, like, it's hard to get back in. Yeah, it's strange.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a very cheap rental. It's like $4 or $5 to, you know, rent in HD, and yeah, and we're on a bunch of other streaming services as well. We're on, like, Xbox Live. We're on Vudu. We're on, like, some ones I've never heard of, like FlixBling, and we're even on Steam for any, you know, gamers out there who are, you know, PC fanatics. You know, if you go on Steam, they actually have movies on there, and Chicago Rot is one of them.
Nice. That's awesome. And for our listeners, you know, this is an experience. You know, you spend your $4.99 on a rental for Chicago Rot, you're going to want to buy the movie after you see it, because it is unlike anything you've ever seen, and we can guarantee that.
Yeah, it's got some rewatch value to it, too, because you're going to miss things the first time through.
Yeah.
So, was any of this movie influenced by the game Shadow Man?
No, it was not.
Okay.
Not directly so, at least.
I felt some similarities there, too. I was like, oh, wow, this is White Shadow Man.
Yeah, no, there's I definitely, you know, I think some of our biggest influences on the film were, you know, Blade Runner and Time Bandits were things that Brant and I talked about a lot, of course, just from the sort of, some of the noirish, grittier elements, dark cityscape, you know, kind of place. Time Bandits very much in the sort of, like, junk aesthetic that some of the alien creatures in the film, you know, have these sort of piecemeal together kind of like armor and, you know, scepters and things like that. They're very much inspired by that aesthetic from Time Bandits. And,
before we let you go, one thing we didn't talk about was setting. Like, with your budgetary restrictions you were talking about, some of the settings in this movie are so great. Like, especially the otherworldly setting, with, like, not necessarily the noir, but more so with, like, the fight scene and all that kind of stuff. Those settings, they work so well. What did you do to create that on such a budget?
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you once again. We did very much, that was inspired by like Close Encounters. We did this like cloud tank kind of process to shoot the backgrounds for these like spatial places that we wanted. The pillars and everything. Brant, you know, in addition to co-writing, acting in the film, and scoring the film, was also one of the main production designers for the film. So a lot of the costumes, you know, were his creations, and those sets, you know, that he's got a long history in carpentry, and has done a lot of like buildings, sometimes for sets, but also has just done a lot of fabrication work over the years. And so he just knows like all the tricks of the trade, and he had, you know, like all these ideas for how to, you know, oh, we can do this super cheap by just like building this cheap wood thing and then blasting it with foam, and then me and my friend will just like carve the foam into like brick and all this type of stuff. So everything was lightweight, you know, we could move it around easy, and it was cheap to make. You know, people bumped into it, it would like wobble and fall over, but you know, so we had to be careful of that. But so then, you know, for some of the backgrounds, like where we wanted it to look like we're in outer space or whatever, myself and the cinematographer spent a few days at our workshop just basically with a pane of glass with a black piece of fabric underneath it, just mixing chemicals, really cheap stuff that we got at the CVS across the street, like hydrogen peroxide, rubbing alcohol, milk, food coloring, things like that. You end up with these amazing reactions that turn into these like crazy galaxies that, if you just shoot them with like a macro lens so that you kind of force that perspective and then place them in our shots as we did, it creates this illusion of scale. When in fact those things are like, maybe that was maybe like a square foot little pane of glass that we shot all that stuff on.
That's crazy, yeah.
But we were able to, make it look like it's the entire galaxy. So it was
ingenuity.
a very cheap solution, really cool stylized look to it. And once again, kept with our philosophy of creating practical effects.
Total
we
DIY
had to have
punk
a
rock.
compositor place that in, but it was like, no, we shot that footage. We shot everything that you see in front of the screen right now.
Nice.
I'm definitely going to be rewatching Chicago Rot again after this interview.
Excellent.
But, so, Chicago Rot, a 7-year project from concept to fruition, as you said. What are you doing now? What's next for you?
Well, as of right now, actually working on a new script, which has been working on for a little while. The woman who plays the piano on the back of the truck and on the roof of Metro and in the cemetery at the end of the movie, a brilliant musician and actress named Rachel Williams. Her and I have been working on a new script together that, I'm hoping she's going to play the lead in. And I don't want to say too much about it, except that, it is not a sequel to Chicago Rot. we very much, as you pointed out earlier, with how much was in Rot, we really approached it as though, like, let's make this movie like we're never going to be able to make another one. Let's not plan for like a trilogy or something. We got to put the movie that we want to make out there. And, so we're doing something, it's very different, but it will probably be very clear that it's from the same people.
Yeah.
To put it, vaguely, but hopefully tantalizingly.
Yeah, great. Well,
yeah, so hoping to get that off the ground. And real quick, too, just to mention, I have been working for the past year and a half or so for a musician, for an electronic artist who performs under the name Pretty Lights. I was doing a bunch of the stage content for him, a bunch of videos, that went on social media, and at the end of last year, we did a proper music video, which is titled Letter 22, which is available, it's on YouTube and everything, so you can check that out too if you want to see more in a totally different vein than Chicago Rot, but again, still, I think, very much clearly reads as it's from the same sort of creative people.
Awesome. And where can our fans follow you, like, on social media? Hear any updates?
Absolutely. No, thank you. Chicago Rot on Facebook and Twitter, just Chicago Rot, and on Instagram at Chicago Rot Movie. And my own personal, I'm not really a big social media person, so I kind of let the film be the presence and keep my personal life, personal.
Makes sense.
Well, thank you so much, Dorian, for joining us. And we love Chicago Rot. We want to, get a resurgence among our audience if they hadn't seen it based on our reviews and our glowing words in the past. Hopefully, after this interview, it's going to make them pull the trigger, get that rental for you, and then fuel that next movie.
Yeah, we would be very grateful for anyone who does. I know all of us in the horror community and who love horror films, we all like to bitch about the lack of creativity, the lack of new, interesting things out there. So if you really, put your money where your mouth is, you really want to see something that, love it or hate it, is like nothing you've ever seen. I think Chicago Rot, honestly, in my opinion, it's the only game in town.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us, Dorian. And
thank you guys so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Hopefully we'll be hearing more from you later down the line.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I wanted to mention too, I did listen to a few episodes of the podcast, and you guys are awesome. I really love the show. It's been a pleasure listening to you, and now getting to talk to you has been a thrill for me. So
awesome. Well, yeah, thank you so much, man. We really appreciate it, and just keep us posted. Let us know anything you're doing. We will share that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys.
All right, thank you. Have a good night, and we will be back.
Hi, thanks for listening to the Postmortem Podcast. If you want to support us, go to our website at www.postmortemshow.com and click the Amazon link.
By clicking on the Amazon banner, Amazon will give a small percentage of the purchase price of your item back to the Postmortem Podcast at no additional cost to you. That's right. It doesn't cost you any money. We get money. You want us to keep doing this? You want more Doug Jones talk? You want more dick and fart talk? I don't care. We're going to do it.
Fund our filthy, filthy habits.
Yes, and they are many, and they are fast.
And most of them aren't legal.
Yes. Click the banner. Just do it.
Come on, don't be a dick. Give us money.
Hey, this is Stephen Byro from Unearthed Films, and you're now listening to Mortem.
And we're back with the top 5 John Carpenter movies, as suggested by our faithful listener, Marc Bartlett. Thanks again, Mark, for reaching out once again and suggesting a list to us. And Guillermo del Toro, Roger tweets after winning the Oscar for Best Picture.
Yeah.
He was putting over John Carpenter. Just trying to push him to the moon.
Yeah.
He had so much eyes on him right then, and he's like, you know what? Here's somebody I respect.
Yeah.
I just want to give all the limelight to him instead.
And it's not like John Carpenter even needed the rub. He was just doing it because he fucking loves John Carpenter.
Yeah, and Guillermo del Toro seems like a really good guy.
Yeah, he seems like the kind of guy I'd want to hang out with.
Yeah, I like him a lot. So, John Carpenter movies. I'll start us off this week with my number 5. Snake Plissken. Plissken in Escape from New York.
Nice.
My number 5. We're going to have probably some crossover on this list. We'll say them anyway, instead of piling on.
Yeah.
So, I love Escape from New York.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It's a great movie. I even love Escape from L.A.
I like New York. I don't really care for L.A. so much because I saw Escape from L.A. before I saw Escape from New York. When I was a kid, I saw Escape from L.A. like right when I hit video, you know? And it was not that good. And so I never watched Escape from New York for many years. Because I'm just like, more of that, you know?
Yeah.
And then I watched Escape from New York and I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah.
Fuck Escape from L.A. You know, for like souring me on it, you know?
Right. Yeah, Escape from New York's a great movie. It's such a, like, all original, too. I mean, it's a play on movies like The Warriors and shit like that, but it's just got so much of its own, emphasis to it.
Yeah. All right, you're number 5.
My number 5 is Prince of Darkness.
Prince of Darkness. On my honorable mentions.
Yeah.
One you enjoy a little bit more than me, a little slow for my taste, but definitely has that John Carpenter vibe.
Yeah, well, and I feel like in this one, like, John Carpenter really, like, did his homework, because he was trying to, like, basically explain the science of Satan.
Yeah.
And the science of evil. And, it's a very slow movie, it's a slow build, but then it goes nuts at the end. And I just really like the movie. It's so well written and well directed, and John Carpenter does his own music too. But
yeah, his music's awesome.
And it goes.
We got to see him when he comes back around.
Yeah,
he's doing the music now. He's just touring. He loves it. So when he comes back around to LA or something, we got to go. Last year, Danny offered me a free ticket. Someone canceled him. He's like, "You want to go down?" And I couldn't do it. I think it was one of the days we had our live show, or either that or I was wrestling.
Okay.
Either that or I had already agreed to do it. One show, either one of our live shows or I was wrestling and I couldn't do it.
Right.
I think I was out of state wrestling or something, but John Carpenter's music is awesome. Alright, so my number 4, keeping with the Kurt Russell theme, Big Trouble in Little China. I love Big Trouble in Little China.
I absolutely love Big Trouble in Little China.
These fucking truck drivers in Little China. You got, what did I say? What was the last episode? We had Francis Lopan. We did our last monster mashups.
Just one of the great all-time villains, and the movie's well made, and it's a throwback to those shitty kung fu movies that I love, but with an American twist on it.
I just really want that my monster mashup of Big Trouble in Little China and Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Pee-wee's Big Trouble in Little China, where he goes against Francis Lopan, his spoiled neighbor. I want that to be a real thing. I need that to be a real thing.
Stole his bike so that he could marry it and live forever. I love your bike. Then why don't you marry it? I intend to. My number 4 is They Live.
They Live.
Good social commentary, great performance by Roddy Piper, great one-liners, and the longest and most uncomfortable fight scene in any movie. Put on the sunglasses.
All right. My number 3. I would be surprised if it's not your number 1. The Thing. I love The Thing.
It's on my list, but it's not my number 1. Yeah.
The Thing is such a great movie.
Yeah.
Those effects are way ahead of their time.
Yeah.
And the plot's really good, too.
Yeah.
The
And
paranoia, you know, and it's another... Like I always talk about space horror and aquatic horror, I love so much. Well, the snow is the same way.
Yeah, isolation.
Anywhere you cannot live comfortably as just a human, and you're out of your element, you don't belong there.
Yeah.
You're out of your element, Donnie.
And the thing is a remake also.
Yeah.
And it's proof that a remake can be better than the original if done right.
That's true.
The black and white one is not a very good movie.
No, not at all compared to John Carpenter's.
Who else but John Carpenter would put fucking Wilford Brimley in a horror movie?
Yeah.
I'd like to come out now. My number 3 is In the Mouth of Madness.
Well, I'll pile on with you because that's my number 2.
Okay.
I love me some In the Mouth of
Yeah,
Madness.
it's other than my number 1 movie, I think it's the John Carpenter movie that I come back to the most.
Yeah.
And it's just that great Lovecraftian horror, kind of a tribute to the genre.
Jurgen Prochnow is awesome.
Yeah.
And it's just a weird fucking movie. The kid on the bike and everything. It's just a visually weird movie to where I remember as a kid seeing it that it just, I didn't understand it at the time, but I knew I liked it.
Yeah.
And as an adult, I like it so much more. Those little nods to H.P. Lovecraft and stuff like that.
And I love how as the lead character goes crazy through the progression of the movie, that even the editing becomes a little bit disjointed. It's a lot more jumpy. Where if anyone else had done that early on in a movie, you'd call it amateurish editing, but it's not. It's John Carpenter trying to make you feel like you're going crazy with Sam Neill.
Yeah. In the Mouth of Madness it's a great movie. I recommend if you haven't seen it, check it out, listeners. But you probably have.
It's an essential movie. Yeah. So that was your number 2?
My number 2, yeah.
My number 2 was The Thing.
Okay.
So we've already talked about that, and we've already talked about my number 1 also, which is Big Trouble in Little China.
Okay.
I go back to that movie more than any other John Carpenter movie. I showed it to the kids not too long ago, and Sabrina liked it. It
works. It's so different. It's so weird.
Yeah. And even though it is an action movie and sort of a horror movie and a John Carpenter movie, it's kind of kid friendly. Like it's pretty safe.
I would say Big Trouble in Little China and In the Mouth of Madness are both movies to where you expect more things to happen than actually happen.
Yeah.
And you're left wanting more.
Yeah. And it works.
It could have been sequels. You could have sequels to those movies,
Absolutely.
All right. So my number 1 was on your list already. They Live. I love They Live.
Yeah.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. Roddy Piper.
The angriest Canadian Scotsman.
Roddy Piper, as a homeless man, wandering through. The beginning of They Live is very gay, with him and the guy, and he's following him, and the homeless encampment, you need a hot meal, and then the fight scene, the uncomfortably long fight scene. I love that fight scene, though.
Yeah,
it's so good.
It is.
Professional wrestling and stunt choreography come together like butt cheeks.
Yeah, for sure. It's like that back alley fight with Roddy Piper and Gold Dust. I think that set the precedent for it.
Yeah, pretty much. They just recreated that. Yeah. Actually, that was after the movie, though.
Yeah.
But They Live, just the punk rock nature of it, anti-establishment, cannot be controlled.
Yeah.
Obey. I used to have that shirt, with just that guy.
Yeah. And it's such a message in a commentary in a movie it's still valid today. It's probably more valid today than it even was back then.
Definitely. So if you guys have put off They Live because Roddy Piper is in it, I assure you, it is the precursor to Duke Nukem, and you must watch it.
You're making a mistake if you're putting off watching that movie. So for honorable mentions, interestingly enough, Halloween didn't make either of our lists.
That's because I did put a number 0 for Halloween.
Oh, okay.
Halloween probably would have been my number 4 above Trouble in Little China and Escape from New York, but I didn't want to go there because it is the most recognizable with John Carpenter.
Yeah.
They're tied together. So I made it my 0, although I would say that I like They Live and In the Mouth of Madness more, and The Thing. So it probably would have been my number 4, bumping out Escape from New York, but I didn't want to put it on my list.
I like Halloween, and I respect it for what it is in terms of a genre-defining film, but it's not one that I go back to that often, and I actually find myself falling asleep when I watch it.
I specifically remember, though, as a kid, on my console TV, one of the big wooden TVs, watching Halloween VHS tape, the same VHS tape I still own, in my room, and thinking, well, I think I'm going to go sleep on my little love seat over there instead of my bed, because my bed is very close to the window, and someone could put their hands through that window and grab me,
pull you out,
and pull me out of the window. So I think I'm going to sleep over there on the couch tonight. I remember that exact thought going in my head as I was watching it.
And I love the idea of Michael Myers being a non-defined character, and every time they've attempted to further define him has been a mistake.
Exactly. That's the Rob Zombie's what didn't work about those movies.
Yeah, that was the silver bullet that killed Rob Zombie's
because
Halloween.
it's not about the person Michael Myers. It's about what he has become, the shape.
Yeah.
Pure evil.
Yeah.
He's not Michael Myers killing people. He is evil killing people.
He's a force of
nature.
nature.
And when you humanize him like that, it makes it so that he's just another serial killer and he's not as cool.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that he moves the way like a Jason.
Yeah.
You can kind of humanize Jason before his death, but after his death, he's a drone.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's like a worker drone.
Yeah.
He's out there to kill. That's his job. That's what he's supposed to do.
That's it.
Michael Myers, same thing.
Yeah.
Gonna kill you.
And it's not like they even take pleasure in what they do. They just do it because that's what they do.
First, I'm going to put this sheet and glasses on, though, before I do it. That's the only part that doesn't make any sense.
So weird.
It doesn't make any sense. Come here.
My other honorable mentions were Escape from New York and L.A., and then two of his movies that are pretty underrated because they're not really horror movies, but they're still great films, are Memoirs of an Invisible Man and Starman.
I've never seen either one of those.
They're both really good movies. Starman is basically like a sci-fi love story.
Yeah.
And basically in Memoirs of an Invisible Man is also in Chevy Chase in like a dramatic role. But
really?
he does slip in some comedy elements to it too.
Yeah.
I feel like Memoirs of an Invisible Man is John Carpenter's Sam Raimi film.
Okay.
Like I feel like he was trying to make a Sam Raimi movie when he made it, and then Starman's just a good movie. It's just one of those good, solid. Like I think it's something you could like watch with Aubrey.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll check him out. I respect John Carpenter. I'll watch his rom-coms. So I got two that you didn't talk about. Christine. I love Christine.
Yeah.
It is not his best work.
No.
That's for sure. But it's definitely worth a watch.
Yeah.
Killer Car. Stephen King. And then another one, Vampires. John Carpenter's Vampires.
I like that
James
one.
Woods.
Yeah.
What's the matter, Father? Getting a little wood?
Mm-hmm.
A little mahogany?
Little mahogany.
So you stabbing that vampire, you get a little chubby? A little wood, a little mahogany? Yeah, I think that's a great... And James Woods, I couldn't buy him as an action horror star.
Yeah.
In that movie.
Yeah.
And we got one of the lesser Baldwins involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, and pretty good.
Aren't they all lesser Baldwins at this point?
I don't know. I think Alec Baldwin's kind of came into his own. He's portraying Trump.
Yeah,
and everything
he's
like
been
that.
pretty good with that. Yeah.
I think he was miscast for many years.
Yeah.
I think that he is that stupid comedy guy, like a Will Ferrell.
Right.
He's not the leading man, romantic action movie star guy that they portrayed him to be, like in The Getaway and things like that,
Right.
which is an awesome movie.
Yeah.
But I think that he's born to be that goofball. What's the name? He was on some show.
30 Rock.
Yeah, and I've never seen that, but that was comedy, and then he started doing a bunch of comedy. So
Kevin Smith had a very short-lived Clerks animated series, and he did the voice of the antagonist on that show that was the evil mayor of the town. Leonardo was his name. And he made that character. There's this episode where Dante has to go to like a funeral or something, and he leaves Randall in charge of the mini mart, and they get a delivery of microwave burritos, and Randall forgets them outside, and they get all rotten, and he brings them in, and they stink horribly, and Leonardo comes into the store to buy something, and he's like, "What's that horrible smell?" And Randall goes, "It's those burritos over there." And why do they stink like that? Because they're imported. And they're expensive, and he sells them the box of burritos for like $300. And he's eating these burritos through the entire episode, puking his guts out, just like practically killing himself, but acting like they're the most delicious thing ever because he paid a lot of money for them. And just the inflection that Alec Baldwin uses on his voice as the character is crumbling is hilarious.
he's good in Beetlejuice too. I really like Beetlejuice. It's more of an appropriate role for him.
Yeah.
So. All right, so that's it for our John Carpenter tribute episode. And we appreciate you guys sticking around for the interview. Thank you to our guest, Dorian Weinzimmer.
Yep, and I guess beyond that, as H.P. Lovecraft once said, as he went to Transylvania to sign some documents, and he went to the old castle, and the door opened, and out stepped Dukes Ferratu.
The Dukes himself.
If it smells like fish,
I'm going to stab that man with a wooden stake, that's for sure. My wooden stake. I love you, Doug.
Your mahogany.
Please return my letters. Why have you forsaken me,
Please
dude?
return my dick pics.
Why have you forsaken me? I need to see your tiny little fish dick. It goes out, it opens, and comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I could just do the silent mime gestures, you know.
But the audience wouldn't understand that.
The audience wouldn't understand, so I had to say it.
Right.
So.
And if it smells like fish,
throw the fucker back.